Hi everyone and welcome to another Vlogmas day. Today I'm going to show you how to make these kind of paper basket ornaments. So in today's video I'm making these different little ornaments. It's two kind of ornaments, these little heart baskets and these little cones. I have multiple versions of them in this video. A little disclaimer, and that is that everything that I use in today's video will be linked in the description down below, and there will be affiliate links more on that in the description. So let's head to the table and start crafting. To begin with, I'm going to make some cone ornaments, and the first paper I'm using is some paper by Graphic 45. These papers are not Christmas papers. This is from their kind of tea collection, I think. But I really liked the kind of grungy blue. Worked perfectly for grungy Christmas tree. I don't know. Right now I've seen out there that wood and a lot of those things are very in. It's this year's kind of ornaments. But yeah, these are just paper ornaments. Here I'm showing you one way of making a circle. I'm going to show you 3 different ways of making circles in this video, or making these little cone ones. This is using a thumbtack and a pencil with a thread. It's super simple and it's something that most people have at home, and I thought it would be kind of a good start to make it easy for people to do this. I measured this out to be somewhat 4 inches because this paper is 8 by 8, which will make a 4-inch high cone. So the radius that you choose is the height, and then you want the paper to be double the radius, so basically the diameter, which in this case is 8 inches. Then I'm going to cut this piece in half, and I'm using my paper cutter. You can use your scissors, I just felt the paper cutter was easiest. I'm also going to fold this, but only pinch it a little bit carefully because I need to figure out the middle so that I can line it up here to make my tab. This is the easiest way to make a tab, but you can also just not make a circle and just make a half circle and then add a tab. And you're going to see in the last version of this how I did that with my silhouette. But here I'm using some Sock-on tape. Sock-on tape is really sturdy, and it's sturdy enough to not needing glue really, but in this case I actually add some liquid glue also. I'm using both a tape and a glue because the tape will hold it together while the glue dries, and the glue will always have a little bit of better stay. It puts together paper much better. Then I go in with my fingers and kind of soften up the paper a little bit to make it more a circle. I'm sorry I'm a little bit outside the camera. I haven't been making videos with my overhead camera for a while, so yeah, it takes a little time to figure that out, knowing how far down you can go and so on. Here I'm measuring out some lace that is going to go around it, both because I wanted a little bit of decoration, but also because I'm going to staple down the little ribbon that is the holder of the basket. So I thought I needed something to hide the staples on the outside. I first tried to just hold the ribbon and then staple and realize that is just not gonna work. So again, I'm taking a little bit of Sock-on tape and I'm adding it to the outside of the ribbon. So the part that is going to be the outside. The ribbon has an inside and outside, and I wanted the design to be on the outside, so I'm adding the tape to the outside because then I can just put it on the inside of the little cone, and it will not have like edges on the outside, if you understand. I want it to be Nice and beautiful. Then I just use a regular staple to staple it down. You could use one of those mini attachers by Tim Holtz. That would be awesome. I don't own one, so I'm just using a very old regular stapler that is probably 30 or 40 years old, if not longer. That's probably from the 70s, so that means it's 50 years old. Oh God. I'm getting old though. But I'm using a thinner version of the Sock1 tape to attach the ribbon, and I'm also using a little bit of glue. Again, this time I can tell you the Sock1 tape is just enough. You do not need the glue. However, it makes it a sturdy cone. And again, I really like that glue. I have both the Lawn Fawn and the My Favorite Things glue, and it works pretty good for both of them. So yeah. And by the way, how do you like the audio? This is the first time I'm using my little Level mic, and I'm hoping the audio is going to be good, because that is what is going to be the voiceovers for the trip. I'm attaching the little lace around the edge, and then I'm cutting it down to fit, and that is our first little cone. And you can add anything. I'm adding some Dumle fudge little caramels into mine, and that is pretty heavy, but it actually holds very well. For my next cone, I'm going to use a 4x4 paper by Doodlebug. This is an old Christmas design, but they always release new Christmas designs every year, and they're basically the same color, so you can just pick up the latest and greatest. And then I'm using this, which I have no clue what it is called in English. I was supposed to look this up, but I didn't. I make sure that it has a 3-inch width, and then I just kind of eyeball the middle, because that's how I work, and then I make the little circle. It's very quick, very easy, and it's very easy to make different sizes of circles. So this circle, as I'm using a 6x6 paper, I am using a radius of 3 inches, so it's going to be a 3-inch high cone. Or I'm actually going to do 3 cones out of this. When I made the first cone, I realized it was very wide, and maybe you don't want that wide of a cone, so I decided to make much smaller cones, much thinner cones. So in this case, I marked the middle, as I had the little circle maker has a needle, so I could see the needle mark there. I just marked it with a red pen. This is on the inside of the cone to just make it easier. And then I'm making sort of three pieces that is sort of even. The first piece ended up being very wide, and then the other got a little bit smaller. Again, I'm doing one of those 1/2-inch circles. Then I'm molding the cardstock with my bone folder to make it kind of bend a little bit easier. You break up the fibers in the paper a little bit, so the paper is softer, and then you can easier make a circle. And then I'm just using plain tape this time, because they're so small. I felt that the tape will work perfectly, and it does. And I made 3 different sizes. They ended up being. I really like the paper that I've chosen. And then I use another kind of square thread. I probably, if I would do this again, I would use a ribbon that is one colored, because the paper is quite busy, and then these end up being quite busy. And make sure that your ribbon is straight. One of these little circles don't have a straight ribbon, because I accidentally wound it a little bit. It happens. Then I'm just using a ribbon around with some Sock1 tape. I would recommend not putting it in the middle, as I did here, but putting it towards the top, and maybe using a much thinner tape, because then it will not be as bunched as this ribbon ended up being. I am going to show you the second or third ribbon, because I did a little bit of a technique with this. So I'm actually doing little folds all around it. So I kept the ribbon on the roll because I didn't know how long ribbon I needed, and then I just added the tape. And when the tape, I didn't add very long tape, and I just added new tape as I went. I'm just doing these simple folds. They're about a centimeter, something like that, half an inch per fold. And I'm just folding it. With the tape, you will get the folds to stand up like a little, I don't know, a cogs, like a cog wheel. And that wasn't what I was going for. Honestly, that wasn't what I was going for. But when I had finished it off and kind of lined it up there at the green mark, I'm going in with teeny tiny tape pieces in between those flaps, the folds, really, honestly. And just add a whole bunch of those little tape pieces, one in each well, so to speak. And then I just remove them and I push down the fold, so I do get that fold-like edge instead of a cog-like fold, because I really wasn't after the cog. However, I would say that this ribbon is a little bit too wide for this little teeny tiny cone, but I like the technique and it was fun to make. So for the last one, I have actually used my silhouette. I had these doilies that I had purchased the little kind of cut, and then I just went into the silhouette software and cut it down to a little a pie piece, basically, and then I added a little rectangle on the side for a tab. So this tab is a little bit easier because I can just use the tape straight down. I didn't let the tab go all the way to the end because then it would be really hard to close at the tip of it. But yeah, I really like this version of the cone. It was much easier. How I would make sure that you have that little middle tip pushed together a little bit better than I did. But yeah, that is the last cone, and it has that little doily shape around it, so I thought I didn't need any ribbon or anything there. But because if it has little holes, maybe you can thread ribbon in the holes or something. And then I'm using just a green Christmas ribbon to have the hanger, I don't know what to call that, the loop, to hang it in the Christmas tree, and I line it up where I wanted, and that is the last cone. And we're moving on to the heart-shaped baskets. Now I start using cardstock here, and I can tell you cardstock is not what you want to use to make these because it's very hard to get them together, but I thought I'd leave this in to show you kind of how I measured it out. In this case, I cut down 2 pieces of cardstock that measures 3 by 9 inches, and then I score them at 4.5 because you do want to work with a folded piece of cardstock. Then I'm going to measure out the heart form, so I do a little square from the fold and upward. I have a 3 by 3 inch square, which leaves 1.5 inch, and then I measure kind of the middle of that so that I can use that tool that I still don't know what it's called to make the circle. I know what it's called in Swedish. It's called passare, but I have no clue what it's called in English. So I just make a half circle for the start of the heart. So this is half of the heart, and the other piece will be the other half of the heart. At the bottom of this with the fold, I said it is a square that measures 3 by 3 inches, and you are going to do some slits up to be able to do the weave. And because this is a 3 by 3 inches, I'm gonna cut the slits to be all the way up to 3 inches, and then 1 inch wide per piece. So as long as you can divide your width / height by 3, you can make these any size. In this case, I'm just sort of eyeballing it straight up. I do recommend measuring it so that they are 1 inch wide all the way up. Also, I do recommend cut like teeny tiny, a 1/16 of an inch, a millimeter, over that 3-inch mark, because that will make it easier to put these together. And then you start weaving these bit by bit together. This is the more complex part, and this is why you don't want to use cardstock. I'm making the wrong thing just here, and I realize it about there. Oh, let's go back. Let's go back. That's not how it's supposed to be. And yeah, and still not doing it correctly. But yeah, you weave them so that every other one is on top and every other one is inside the fold. The cardstock ones were really hard to do because you have to kind of mold the paper, and the cardstock is just too thick to do that. When I did these when I was young, we had this shiny paper. It was called lac paper, I think it was called. So it was really shiny on one side, and it came in a lot of different colors. I haven't seen it in years, so I don't know if it exists. And it's about the thickness of copy paper. So it's super thin, but because it has that shiny coat, it will stay together a little bit easier than other papers. And therefore making these ones isn't as hard. I'm leaving it in here to show you how hard this actually was, to really make sure that you understand that cardstock is not the right way to go. In this case, I have my favorite thing, red hot cardstock, and the white cardstock is Nina. So the Nina is 80-pound cover stock, while the my favorite thing, I actually don't know how thick it is, but it is thicker than the Nina. Look, sometimes it's hard to figure out how it's supposed to go together, but if you fiddle and you bend and you're careful, it works out. In this case, I actually ended up tearing the red cardstock just slightly at the top, but it's nothing you can see from afar if you hang it in a Christmas tree. So don't worry if you accidentally tear the cardstock slightly. Just make sure that that side of the heart is put against the tree, and no one will notice at all. To finish off this piece, we're gonna add the little hanger thing, and I just made like half an inch, or no, 3/8 of an inch, I think, wide cardstock strip, and add the little tapes as I usually do, and put it on the inside, kind of putting it in the middle. And yeah, I do use my bone folder to just make it circular, because cardstock is harder to work with. So again, just use the bone folder and it will curl, and there you have the first one. So for the second one, I'm going to use some printed paper. This is 160 GSM cardstock, and I have printed some digital files that I got through Design Cuts, and I'm making it the same size as the previous one. So this is 9 by 3 inches, and then I score it at 4.5. And this is because you want the half circle to be half the height as the kind of width of these strips. So again, you kind of look at it that at the bottom where the fold is and upwards you have about 3 inches, and then you have 1.5 inches to the top, and that is where you make your little circle. And then I'm just measuring out the strips, and this time I am measuring out and lining up those inch pieces to make it a little bit easier. And I do this on both pieces, and I use that funny little tool again to make my little oval or half circle at the top to make it a heart shape in the end. This is much easier to cut, I can tell you that. And it's, I really like the paper. I really like the color of it, how it ended up looking. So I'm really happy with this design. And then I'm just gonna, again, go through and weave it. And it's much, much easier to weave here. But again, at this point, I did not cut that extra millimeter. So it is still quite hard at the top to get it to kind of line up perfectly. But it's a little bit easier because this cardstock isn't as thick, or paper isn't as thick, and because it isn't as thick, it doesn't need as much wiggle room. The thicker the cardstock, the higher up you need to cut over that square to be able to line this up, and you need to kind of fiddle with it a lot. These are not very quick to make. You will have to fiddle with them. All of the clips in today's video are sped up by 200%, so double the speed, just so that you could see what I'm doing and not get bored. Otherwise this video would be like almost an hour long. Before I cut it down, I think it was 1.5 hours long. So yeah, be happy that I put some time into cutting it. So yeah, I'm just weaving it back and forth, back and forth. As I said, this is the hardest part to get in, the last little piece, but it's well worth it to fiddle and have this. I really like these little hearts, but there is cardstock out there that is coated. I wouldn't recommend using photo paper because that actually cracks, but there is coated cardstocks out there. I know that Crafter's Companion has these shiny cardstock and papers that has this nice coat, and you can print on them, so that you could use instead. It would hold a little bit better than just normal cardstock. But yeah, that's the second of my hearts, and now we're gonna do the third version, and I'm going to show you how to make a template. When I was younger, we always had a little template. This is going to be a little bit of a smaller one. It is 2.25 high and 1.5 wide. So it is a much smaller heart, and you don't have to make them as big as I did them. Instead you can do teeny tiny, especially if you have a teeny tiny tree. If you want to have like a little table tree or something like that, this size might work better. Or if you want to have a whole bunch of them, making different sizes will kind of make it a little bit more aesthetic, to have like 3 different sizes. I'm only making 2 different sizes in this video though. So after I have kind of just measured everything up, I'm gonna cut it out, and yeah, I'm not doing a good job of cutting this half circle this time. It was hard to make it on the Nina when it was such a little one. And then I'm gonna use my little hole punch to punch little holes at the top and at the bottom of these lines, because then you can make marks through this little thing. And I'm not going to cut it up, so I'm going to keep it this way and letting those holes mark where I'm going to do the little lines. And then I'm going to use 2 of the other papers I got in this little printable collection. By the way, Design Cuts or on Etsy or anywhere, you can find a lot of printable cardstock and pattern papers, and if you have a hard time getting things shipped, this is also a way to do it. Just find different kinds of cardstock and paper, thickness of it, and you can print a lot of things. So again, I did a fold these 2. I made them 4.5 long, Then fold them at 2 1/4, making sure that the fold is at the bottom of this, so that where you do the half circle is not a fold. And then I'm just gonna weave it in, and it was so much easier to weave this little one than it was with the big one. And yeah, that is that one, and I decided to put a ribbon on this one, so you can kind of interchangeably use ribbons or just string or use paper cardstock. You can do anything you want. And that is the last one. I want to say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!